The rain fell in relentless sheets, flooding the gutters and drumming on broken rooftops as a 7-year-old girl crouched alone beside a trash-strewn alley wall, soaked through, trembling, clutching a tiny photograph pressed tight against her chest. Her torn yellow backpack sagged with water, straps fraying, and her lips moved silently as though whispering to someone who was no longer there. Her hair clung to her face in tangled strands, eyes wide with fear, darting at every flash of headlights passing the mouth of the alley. She pressed the photograph harder against her chest, the only image she had left of her mother. The sound of boots striking puddles cut through the rain. At the alley's edge, a figure emerged, broad-shouldered beneath a rain-darkened camouflage jacket, his posture weary but steady. Beside him padded a German shepherd, ears alert, tail low, its every move measured in quiet rhythm with the man's. The soldier stopped when he saw her, his scarred hand lowered instinctively to the dog's neck. The shepherd responded with a small whine and stepped forward, sensing something fragile in the shadows. The girl flinched, retreating until her back hit the cold brick. She clutched the photograph tighter, her knuckles white. The soldier crouched, ignoring the rain soaking into his uniform. His voice was rough but gentle. "It's all right. We're not here to hurt you." The shepherd sat, lowering his head to the girl's eye level. He didn't bark. Instead, he inched closer, resting his paw in the water between them, a silent offering. "Before we begin, let me know where you are watching from. Leave your country name in the comments below. And if you love stories about courage, loyalty, and community, be sure to subscribe so you don't miss the next stories." The girl's lips trembled. She didn't answer. Instead, she held out the soaked photograph as though this scrap of paper could explain the weight of her silence. The soldier took it carefully, shielding it from the rain with his calloused palm. It was faded, but he recognized the look in the smiling woman's eyes, the same fear-etched resilience he had seen in war zones, in mothers carrying their children through rubble. He swallowed hard and handed it back. "You hold on to that," he said. "It matters." The girl's eyes flicked from the soldier to the shepherd. Tentatively, she reached a trembling hand toward the dog. The shepherd closed the distance, pressing his warm head into her palm. A sob escaped her throat, sharp, broken but real. The soldier exhaled, relief breaking through the tightness in his chest. "See? He knows. He trusts you. And so do I." Thunder cracked overhead, shaking the windows above them. The soldier flinched, his body stiff, eyes unfocused for half a breath as memories crashed in with the storm. A door slamming in Fallujah, comrades screaming under fire. His hand twitched until the shepherd nudged him firmly, grounding him back to the alley. The girl noticed. Her voice was so soft it nearly vanished under the rain. You jump like me." When it's loud, the soldier froze, staring at her. It wasn't just fear she carried, it was recognition. Two broken pieces of different battles, seeing themselves in the other. He held out his hand. "Come on, let's get you out of the rain." The girl hesitated, then reached for the shepherd instead. She curled her fingers into the dog's wet fur, and only then allowed the soldier to take her other hand. Together they rose. The street beyond the alley was nearly empty, but not silent. A car slowed, headlights crawling across them. The girl shrank back instantly, pulling the shepherd close, her photograph nearly slipping into the gutter. The soldier's hand tightened around hers. His other hand hovered near his sidearm beneath the coat. The car idled, engine humming, then rolled forward slowly, too slowly, before disappearing into the sheets of rain. He crouched again, meeting her eyes. "Are they looking for you?" She nodded once, quick, terrified. "Who?" Her whisper was broken glass carried on the storm. "The man who said he'd take care of me. But he hurts me. And he said if I told, no one would believe me." The soldier's jaw tightened. The shepherd growled low, sensing his fury. The girl pressed her face into the dog's soaked fur, the photograph trembling in her fist. The soldier rested a steadying hand on her shoulder. "You don't have to go back," he said. "Not tonight. Not ever." Her small body shook as she whispered the words that cut deeper than the rain. "Please, don't send me back." Rain hammered the roof of the community clinic, guttering down in silver ropes that made the waiting room windows stutter. The soldier signed a clipboard with a name the receptionist could read, and a history she couldn't, his damp sleeve dripping onto the paper. The girl, her name was Maya, he'd learned, sat wrapped in a grey wool blanket, damp hair plastered to her cheeks, the small photograph cradled in both hands, like a relic. The German shepherd, Arrow, curled at her feet, one paw touching the edge of her shoe, eyes moving from door to hallway to soldier in a slow, watchful circuit. A nurse ushered them into an exam room that smelled of lemon and gauze. She was middle-aged and gentle, with the practiced caution of someone who has seen too many children flinch. "I'm Nurse Lila," she said, kneeling so her face was level with Maya's. "I'm just going to check your temperature and make sure you're warm enough." "Is that all right?" She didn't reach out yet. She waited. Maya's gaze flicked to Arrow. The dog touched her ankle with his nose, as if giving permission. When Maya nodded, Lila worked with careful hands. Stethoscope warmed in her palm before it met the little chest. Cuffs tightened slowly. Tongue depressor shone first, like a magic trick, and then used. The nurse wrote notes, the pen not quite hiding the tighten of her jaw, at the purple fingerprint shadowing the girl's upper arm. The soldier stood in the corner, dripping onto the tiles, hands clenched, and then opened, clenched, and then opened, like someone practicing how to hold back a tide. Thunder rolled. He flinched. Arrow's ear twitched, the dog's body angling until his flank pressed into the soldier's shin. The man exhaled. Lila finished and rose. "She's cold and dehydrated, but stable," she said quietly. "I'm going to get hot chocolate. Melted marshmallows fix many things." She left, and the door clicked shut, and the waiting sound returned. Rain, breath, the soft squeak of Arrow's pads when he adjusted. Maya turned the photograph over. The back was smudged with thumbprints and a faint, half-washed shorthand date. "She's pretty," the soldier said softly. "My mum," Maya whispered. "She used to tell me the rain was how the sky watered the world." Her lip trembled. After she went to the hospital and didn't come back, he said it was my fault the sky wouldn't stop crying. The soldier swallowed. He hated how his voice wanted to break and how his training taught him to hide it. "My name is Reed," he said. "This is Arrow. I know it's hard to believe, but you're safe right now. And you did nothing wrong. Will they believe me?" Maya's whisper thinned with fear. He said no one would. "They will," Reed said, trying to make the vow true by the time it left his mouth. "And if they don't at first, I won't stop until they do." The door opened again. Lila returned with a paper cup crowned in foamed sweetness, and behind her, a woman with a leather case, frizzy curls held back with a pencil, eyes that smiled before her mouth did. "Hot chocolate," Lila announced. "And a friend." She nodded toward the newcomer. "This is Amara Chen. She's with CPS tonight." "Call me Amara," the woman said, voice gentle. She didn't look at the soldier like a complication. She looked at Maya like a person. "I heard you were very brave." Maya held the cup with both hands, steam softening the trembling. She didn't answer. Arrow leaned his head against her knee again, and the girl's fingers sank into his fur. Amara pulled a chair close but not too close. "Sometimes," she said, "grown-ups forget that bravery can be quiet. Like telling someone what happened, or saying, 'I don't want to go back.' Would you like to tell me anything?" Maya's eyes lowered to the photograph. "He gets angry," she said finally. "When I cry. When I don't. He said if I were better, I wouldn't make him mad." She drew a breath and added, as if confessing a sin, Sometimes he locks me outside, only until I learn. He says. Reed's jaw hardened. Arrow felt the shift in him and pressed harder into his leg. Lila looked at Amara. Something passed between them that was half grief, half resolve. Amara nodded slowly. "Thank you for telling me." She glanced at Reed. "Sergeant, just Reed." "Reed," she corrected. "Did you bring her in from the address on Cedar Lane?" Reed didn't answer with words. His eyes did. "Her stepfather," he said. A black truck idled at the alley mouth. It crept. "I think he was waiting for the right moment to collect what he thinks is his." The room chilled, despite the steam. Amara jotted notes, then straightened. "I'm filing an emergency protective order right now. We'll place Maya in protective custody immediately, pending a hearing. A judge will review in the morning." She lowered her voice. "Cedar Lane has history, complaints that went nowhere. Neighbors who didn't see?" She exhaled. "Small-town silence is the cheapest kind of complicity." Lila touched Amara's shoulder. "We can keep her for the night in observation. Safer than a foster drop at midnight." "I'll stay." Amara nodded with gratitude. She turned to Reed. "I'll need your statement. And, if you're willing, your testimony later." Reed heard the distant slam of a door. Thunder, really, but his body interpreted it with the speed of trauma. The smell of wet canvas flashed into burning diesel. The fluorescence hummed like a Black Hawk's tail rotor. Someone yelled, and it was the past. Arrow's paw came up, nudging Reed's thigh, firm once, twice, an anchor on a storm-blown deck. Reed blinked, breathing back into the room. "I'll testify," he said, "whatever it takes." They moved Maya to a quiet observation room with a narrow bed and a lamp that pretended to be warm. Lila brought a second blanket and tucked it around the girl's shoulders. Amara made calls, her voice alternating between calm and steel. Reed stood at the door like a sentry. Arrow lay across the threshold, a living hinge that decided who could pass. For a few minutes, the world softened. Maya sipped chocolate and traced the photograph's edge with her thumb. "If I'm good," she said to no one in particular. "Will he stop?" "No," Lila said, honest and kind at once. "But we will." The phone at the nurse's station rang. Amara stepped out to answer. The hallway light painted a rectangle across Maya's blanket. Reed eased onto the chair and let his hands dangle between his knees, fingers tapping an old cadence he'd learned to calm down. Arrow watched him and matched the rhythm with his breathing. Amara came back in with a frown, smoothed so Maya would not borrow it. "The stepfather has already called. Says she's a runner. Says he's worried sick." Her mouth tightened. He also mentioned the benefits, survivors' funds from Maya's mother's service-connected death. She looked at Reed. "He's not just controlling. He might be stealing." Maya's head snapped up. "It was mine," she said, voice sudden and fierce. "Mama said it was to make sure I go to school and have shoes that don't hurt." Reed leaned forward. "Did your mom serve?" Amara answered. "Medical Corps woman. Died last year from complications of exposure." She softened to Maya. "Your mom was a hero?" Maya's eyes shone. "She said heroes are just people who keep going." Lila touched her hair. "So are you." Before warmth could take root, the clinic's front door rattled. A heavy fist pounded. Voices bled through, one pleading, then rising, then sharp with authority. Arrow stood, ears pricked, low growl blooming from his chest. Reed moved automatically to the doorframe, peering down the hall. Two silhouettes loomed behind the frosted glass, a man and, beside him, a woman in a dark coat with a church pin at her collar. The man's voice carried, rehearsed and sorrowful. "Please, she's confused. She does this when she's overwhelmed. Pastor Elise can vouch for me. Just let me prove I'm a good guardian." Amara stepped into the hall with the calm of a person who knows rules and how to wield them. "Sir, you'll have to wait outside. A judge will decide." "Tonight," She remains in protective custody. Pastor Elise added oil to the performance. Amara dear, you know me. This family needs unity, not interference. Think of the gossip if... Gossip, Amara said, is exactly why we're here at midnight instead of last year. She raised her badge to the window. You can speak at the hearing. The man's tone changed, slipping like a knife between ribs. You have no right to steal my girl. Reed felt the hair rise on Arrow's neck, and, a half-second later, his own. Lila ushered Maya deeper into the room, whispering about extra marshmallows with the kind of cheer that was also a shield. Maya's hands shook harder than the spoon she held. The pounding stopped. Tires hissed in the lot. Silence flowed back in, but it came with grit in it. Amara returned, eyes clouded, and thumbed out another call. Sheriff Torres, she said when the line picked up. We have an agitated guardian attempting contact. I want a patrol car to swing by and stay visible. Minutes passed. Maya yawned and then apologized for yawning. Arrow rested his chin on the bed and closed one eye, keeping the other on the door. Reed finally stood down enough to sit on the floor, his shoulder against the metal frame. The fluorescent buzz drifted toward Lullaby. The building shuddered. A pop of electricity snapped the lights to black. Maya gasped. Arrow was up before sound finished forming, body bristling, teeth bared at the dark. Reed's training slid into place, hand to flashlight, beam knifing the room in white. Amara? I'm here, her voice from the hall. Backup generators failing to kick. Her phone screen lit her face. I'll check the breaker. Not alone, Reed said, already at the...
Dr. Arrow moved with him. Lila stayed with Maya, pulling the blanket higher, murmuring nothing words that were really everything words. The corridor stretched like a throat. Emergency lights glowed dim and then died. Rain hammered the roof until the building felt like a drum. From the far end of the hall came the wet squeak of a shoe and the hush of a voice that didn't want to be a voice. Arrow snapped to look right, then left, then fixed forward, muscles bunching. Reed raised his light. The beam slid across an exit sign, a supply closet, a shadow that refused to be furniture. A hand slapped the emergency bar. The side door hissed. Cold rain gusted inside. For a heartbeat, Reed saw him. Stocky, brim of a ball cap slick with water, eyes bright with a kind of certainty you only get from getting away with things. The man didn't come in. He reached. A shape clattered down the hall, metal on tiles, rolling, spinning, stopping against Arrow's paw. Not a weapon, a phone. Screen lit. On it, a video froze on the first frame. Maya laughing in a kitchen that wasn't this one, cookie dough on her nose, a man's hand visible only as it reached in to wipe it off. A nice hand, fatherly, a lie. The video started to play on its own, volume low but slick. See? She's happy with me. She asks for me, the man's recorded voice cooed, overlapped with present tense rain. She always comes back. Amara's breath hitched behind Reed, anger and dread braided in the sound. He'll flood the town group chats by morning, she said. He's building a case in public before we even get to court. Arrow nudged the phone like it smelled of poison. Reed kicked it to the wall and kept his light on the open door. It creaked, then swung inward with a slow, theatrical groan. The man was gone, but his proof-of-life performance kept playing, curated moments, a pieced narrative to cover bruises with cookies. Reed closed the door and shot the bolt. We hold here, he said. We keep her safe tonight, and tomorrow we make them hear. He turned back toward the room where Lila hummed a tune that had the shape of lullaby and the strength of a fortress. When he stepped into the doorway, Maya looked up at him with the helpless bravery of a child who wants to trust and knows the cost. Her voice was small, as if afraid of setting the sprinklers off. If I'm quiet and good and don't cry, she whispered, will they stop saying it's all my fault? Reed crouched, so the flashlight made them a little tent. Arrow pushed his head inside, warm breath fogging the beam. You don't have to be quiet for me, Reed said, and none of this is your fault. From the hall, Amara's phone buzzed, a message from Pastor Elise pinging to an ever-growing thread. The text preview glowed pale. Pray for Maya. She's confused and taken by strangers. We must bring her home. The storm pounded the roof like a gavel. Somewhere outside, an engine idled again. Inside, Arrow's growl rolled low, and the flashlight flickered once, twice, then steadied. The night wasn't over. The rain didn't stop. It sheeted across the clinic's windows, blurry streaks that made the fluorescent light inside feel like a fragile lantern in an endless storm. Every creak of the building sounded louder now. Maya sat cross-legged on the bed, clutching the photograph with one hand and Arrow's fur with the other, her eyes too big for her face, too wary for 7 years old. Reed leaned against the doorframe like a soldier still posted in enemy territory. His body said at ease, but his hands twitched every time thunder cracked. Arrow, sprawled across the threshold, never fully slept. His ears rotated like radar, catching sounds beyond human range. Amara moved between phone calls and scribbled notes, pacing in tight lines, her lips pressed into a flat line. She'd been a caseworker for long enough to know that abusers often worked their stories like weapons. A video here, a pastor's blessing there, a town convinced before the law even took its first step. Lila returned with fresh blankets and set them on the counter. "We can't keep her long term," she murmured to Reed. "We're not set up for it." Reed's jaw worked. "So what happens in the morning?" Amara stopped pacing. "Protective custody hearing. The judge will hear both sides, but don't underestimate him. He'll show up looking like a victim himself, polished, calm, a grieving widower trying to raise a child alone. He'll bring character witnesses. He's already seeding doubt online." Reed rubbed his temple, feeling the throb that never quite went away. "What about the bruises?" The nurse's notes? "They matter," Amara said, "but bruises fade. Photos can be argued. Judges are human, and humans believe stories." Maya whispered, not looking up. "He tells good stories." The room stilled. Arrow whined softly, pushing his muzzle into her lap until she stroked him with tiny, trembling fingers. Reed crouched so he was at eye level with her. "And we'll tell the truth, Maya. Stories can be lies, but truth has weight." Maya's eyes flicked toward him, searching for something. Then, almost inaudibly, "What if the truth isn't enough?" Reed opened his mouth, then closed it. He had asked himself that same question too many nights in too many places. The silence stretched until Amara cut in. "Then we keep showing it until it is." The interruption. Near midnight, Sheriff Torres arrived, water dripping from the brim of his hat. His boots left tracks across the tiles, and the smell of wet leather clung to him. "Patrol's out front," he said, voice steady. "But I'll tell you straight, this town knows that man. They see him at church, at the diner, fixing his truck in his driveway. They don't want to believe he's capable of anything ugly." Amara crossed her arms. "And you?" Torres sighed, the sound of someone already tired of being between right and popular. "I've had my suspicions. Complaints I couldn't get to stick. Neighbors retracted. Teachers afraid to file." "He's careful." Reed stepped forward, shadows deepening the scars across his cheek. "Careful doesn't mean innocent." Torres met his eyes, then nodded once. "I'll testify to what I can. But I need something more than suspicions." The conversation stopped when a muffled thud rattled the back door. Arrow snapped to his feet, hackles rising, a growl rumbling low. Maya's breath hitched, and she pressed closer to Reed, who instantly moved between her and the sound. Torres drew his weapon, motioning to Amara and Lila to stay back. Reed's instincts kicked in, the old muscle memory of clearing rooms, of moving with the rhythm of danger. His pulse surged, memories clawing up, but Arrow's presence steadied him. Another thud, then silence. Reed whispered, "Diversion." He scanned the window, but rain made everything ghostly. Torres opened the door slowly, gun ready. The back alley stretched empty under a curtain of rain.
No footprints, no movement, just the trash can tipped over, lid rolling in circles. But Maya had already curled into herself, whispering, "He's here. I know he's here." Reed gathered her close. "Not tonight," he said. His voice was firm, though inside his chest, unease grew roots. Secrets in the photograph. When calm finally seeped back into the corners of the room, Amara sat by Maya's bed. "Sweetheart, can I see the photo you're holding?" Maya hesitated, then slowly handed it over. Amara studied it under the lamp. "This is your mum?" Maya nodded. "She was a medic. She said we were both brave." Reed leaned closer. Something caught his eye, not in the image of the woman smiling, but in the corner. A reflection in glass, faint but sharp enough. A hospital ID badge clipped to her shirt pocket. The name was blurred, but the insignia was clear. Army Medical Corps. Reed's breath caught. "She served." Maya's voice grew stronger. "She told me once she kept a journal. But he took all her things." Her face crumpled. "He said they were junk." Amara and Reed exchanged a look. That journal could change everything, prove intent, reveal arrangements, expose abuse. "Do you remember where she kept it?" Reed asked gently. Maya nodded. "In the cedar box. Under her bed. She showed me once." Torres scratched his chin. "That house is locked up tight. He'd never let us in without a warrant." "Then we get a warrant," Amara said, voice sharp with resolve. "Tomorrow, maybe." Torres looked at Maya. "But tonight, we hold." Night's whisper. Hours passed in fractured sleep. Reed dozed in the chair, Arrow stretched across his boots, Amara drafted reports, Torres spoke in low tones to patrol officers, Lila checked vitals and covered Maya again.
When she kicked off the blanket. At 3 a.m., Maya stirred. She sat up, clutching the photo, whispering to Arrow. The shepherd lifted his head, ears perked, listening as though her secrets were his orders. Reed opened one eye. "Couldn't sleep?" Maya hesitated, then whispered, "He told me Daddy's dead. But Mama said Daddy went away, not gone. What if—" Her breath shuddered. "What if he lied about that too?" The room felt colder. Reed's throat tightened. "Then we'll find the truth," he said, though the weight of it sat heavy. Maya hugged the photograph and leaned against Arrow. Her final words before drifting back into sleep were barely audible. "Please don't let him find me before the truth does." The rain outside answered with endless applause, as if promising nothing, except that the night wasn't done testing them. Morning did not bring peace. It brought grey skies, swollen with rain, and the courthouse steps slick with puddles that mirrored the sagging flags overhead. Maya clutched the photograph in both hands, as if it might vanish in the mist. Reed walked beside her, Arrow pacing with the measured patience of a guardian who understood tension. Inside, the courthouse buzzed. Reporters lingered near the entrance with umbrellas, their cameras discreet but ready. Neighbors filled benches, whispering, their voices braided with pity, curiosity, and doubt. The man at the center of their whispers stood near the front, his dark suit pressed, hair neatly combed. Caleb Morgan, the stepfather, looked every bit the grieving widower. Pastor Elise stood at his side, a Bible in her hands like a shield. Maya froze when she saw him. Reed bent down, his voice low. "You're not alone." Arrow nudged her knee with his muzzle, and she leaned into the dog until her small shoulders stopped trembling. Amara ushered them into the child witness room, a smaller space off the main hall with soft chairs and a mural of smiling suns painted long ago. "We'll keep her here until it's her turn," Amara said, less overwhelming. Reed stayed, standing guard by the door. He hated how the mural's cheer felt false, how even sunlight through the blinds looked pale here. He caught his reflection in the glass, a man hollowed by war, now holding the line for one child in a world too quick to look away. The hearing begins. Judge Holloway, a heavy-set man with a gravel voice, opened proceedings in the main chamber. Amara led the case for protective custody,
outlining bruises, Maya's statements, and the late-night incident at the clinic. Caleb sat still, hands folded, occasionally dabbing his eyes with a handkerchief. When his turn came, his attorney painted a picture of a man overwhelmed by grief, trying his best, undone by a willful child and meddling outsiders. Pastor Elise testified first. She spoke of Caleb's faithful attendance at church, his generous donations, his tears during Sunday prayers. "He is not perfect," she admitted, "but who among us is? He loves that child," murmurs rippled through the benches. Reed, listening from the side, clenched his fists until the scars on his knuckles blanched. He could see Caleb smile, a controlled, practiced smirk, as each word landed. Then it was Amara's turn. She called Reed's testimony. Reed took the stand. Arrow lay at his feet, a quiet symbol of loyalty. "My name is Reed Walker. I served 3 tours overseas. I know what neglect looks like. I know what fear does to children. I found Maya alone in the rain, soaked to the bone, holding only a photograph of her mother. No child chooses that." The defense attorney leaned forward. "Mr. Walker, you've admitted you suffer from PTSD, correct?" Reed's chest tightened. "Yes." "Which means you're prone to flashbacks, misinterpreting situations, seeing threats where none exist." The lawyer's tone was smooth, rehearsed. "Isn't it possible your condition colored what you believed you saw that night?" The words struck deep, the courtroom blurring for a moment, as Reed heard echoes of mortars in the thunder outside. But then Arrow pressed his paw against Reed's boot. He steadied. "I know the difference between a memory and a child's cry for help," Reed said firmly. And Maya's cries were real. Silence followed, heavy enough to break the lawyer's rhythm. The photograph Amara presented the photograph next. This belonged to Maya's mother, a medic who died in service. Notice the hospital badge in the corner. She explained how Maya had described a journal her mother kept, one Caleb had likely hidden or destroyed. The judge leaned forward, interested. Caleb's face tightened for the first time. "This case isn't just about bruises," Amara continued. "It's about control. About silencing a child, and about the money that comes with her custody." The courtroom shifted. Whispers grew louder. Caleb's attorney objected, calling it speculation, but the seed had been planted. Maya's turn. Finally, Maya was called. She stepped into the courtroom, Arrow at her side. The judge allowed the dog after Amara explained his role in grounding her anxiety. Maya held her photograph, walking slowly, her shoes squeaking on the polished floor. The defense attorney tried to soften his voice. "Maya, your stepfather says he loves you. Do you believe he loves you?" Maya's lips trembled. She looked at Caleb, then at Arrow, then at Reed. Her whisper barely reached the microphone. "He loves when I'm quiet. He loves when I don't eat too much. He loves when I don't cry." A hush fell. Even the judge's pen stilled. Amara asked gently, "Maya, what do you want?" The girl's eyes filled with tears. "I want to be somewhere safe, with people who don't hurt me." She bent down and pressed her face into Arrow's neck. Her final words were muffled but clear. "Please don't send me back." Aftermath. The judge recessed, needing time. The courthouse buzzed louder now, some murmuring sympathy, others still unconvinced. Pastor Elise tried to gather support in the hallway, her words sharp. Children get confused. Strangers meddle. Families break. But for the first time, cracks showed in Caleb's calm. His jaw clenched, his hands fisted around that handkerchief until threads split. He leaned close to his lawyer, whispering something that made the man pale. Reed noticed. Arrow noticed too, ears pricking. Danger wasn't gone, it was waiting. As they left the chamber, Amara whispered to Reed, "He's cornered." Cornered men don't stop, they lash out. Reed nodded grimly. "Then we'll be ready." Maya clung to Arrow's fur, whispering into the stormy afternoon, "Please don't let him find me." And outside, parked across the street, a black truck idled with its engine running,
exhaust curling like smoke from a gun not yet fired. The courthouse air still clung to Reed's skin long after they left, heavy with whispers and suspicion. The black truck across the street idled, exhaust curling in slow, white breaths against the wet afternoon. Its windshield gleamed too dark to see through. Maya stiffened when she saw it. Arrow bristled, a low growl rising in his chest. Reed's instincts screamed, but he forced his voice calm. "Eyes forward," he told Maya softly. We walked together. Amara flanked the other side, her leather case hugged close. Sheriff Torres lingered on the courthouse steps, scanning the street. He muttered into his radio, but Reed noticed his eyes lingered on the truck too long, like a man who already knew how slippery Caleb could be. They reached Amara's car, a battered sedan with child locks on the back doors. Maya slid in first, Arrow jumping up beside her without hesitation. Reed settled in the passenger seat, scanning mirrors. The truck didn't follow. Not yet. Safe house. That evening, Amara arranged a temporary placement at a safe house run by a retired teacher named Mrs. Calloway. Her farmhouse sat on the edge of town, shutters worn but sturdy, a fireplace glowing against the grey. It smelled of cedar and cinnamon, and for the first time in days, Maya's shoulders dropped an inch. Mrs. Calloway fussed over her, setting a plate of warm cornbread and honey on the kitchen table. Arrow stationed himself under the chair, head resting on Maya's lap. Reed remained by the window, scanning the dirt road leading to the house, his scars prickling with unease. "Tomorrow," Amara said as she laid out files, "we push for a warrant to search the house on Cedar Lane. If that journal still exists, it could break this wide open." Reed nodded. "She said it was in a cedar box under the bed." "If it's there, it's proof of what her mother wanted, and proof Caleb's been hiding it." Maya whispered into her cornbread. "He doesn't let me in her room." Any more, Reed crouched beside her. "That doesn't mean it's gone." "We'll find it." Her eyes lifted, a flicker of hope trembling in them like candlelight in a storm. The attempt night pressed heavy. Rain softened to drizzle and the house creaked like an old ship settling into calm waters. Mrs. Calloway retreated upstairs. Amara spread blankets on the couch. Reed stayed awake in a rocking chair, Arrow curled at his boots. Sometime past midnight, Arrow's ears snapped forward. His body went rigid. A low rumble vibrated in his chest. Reed's eyes opened instantly. He gestured for silence, his military instincts reawakening like old comrades. He moved to the window. Headlights blinked off down the dirt road. A shadow shifted against the tree line. Reed's pulse spiked. He whispered, "He's here." Arrow padded to Maya's door and sat, body blocking it. Reed slid his pistol from its holster, breath steady. The back door rattled, once, twice. Then a metallic scrape, the unmistakable whisper of someone trying to jimmy the lock. Reed raised his hand to Amara, signaling her to stay low. He moved toward the door with Arrow slinking at his side, teeth bared in silence. The lock clicked, the door creaked open, a figure slipped inside, dripping wet, cap pulled low. Caleb. His eyes gleamed with certainty, as if the law had already failed him, and this was his right. Reed leveled the gun. "Don't move!" Caleb froze, hands half raised. His voice was syrupy calm. "Sergeant Walker." "I don't want trouble. She's my daughter. She belongs with me." Arrow growled, stepping forward. Caleb's eyes flicked toward Maya's door. "You've poisoned her against me," he hissed. "But she'll come when she sees me." "She always does." Reed's finger tightened on the trigger. His body shook, not from fear, but from the storm of old memories. Doorways in Iraq, men stepping in with bombs strapped to their chests. His chest heaved. Arrow pressed against his leg, anchoring him. "Leave," Reed said, voice low and deadly, "or you won't walk out." For a moment, Caleb's mask cracked, anger flashing raw. Then footsteps thundered from upstairs, Mrs. Calloway holding a phone. "Sheriff's on his way," she shouted. Caleb snarled and bolted, slamming the door so hard the frame rattled. Tires spun in the mud, engine howling into the night. Reed lowered the gun, every nerve screaming. Arrow barked once, sharp, like a gavel declaring the moment over. Behind the door, Maya's whisper floated out. "I knew he'd come." Reed pressed a hand against the wood. "And I knew we'd stop him." The journal. By dawn, Sheriff Torres arrived, jaw tight, boots muddy. "That was bold," he said grimly. "We'll put out a warrant for trespass, but with the right spin, he'll claim he was just checking on his child. Still, this gives us leverage. The judge won't like him ignoring custody orders." Amara leaned against the porch rail, exhausted but resolute. "Today we search Cedar Lane." Hours later, warrant in hand, they entered the house. It smelled of stale smoke and cheap cologne. The walls were bare where family photos should have been, the silence of erasure heavy in every room. Reed led the way upstairs, Arrow sniffing along the hall. He stopped at the master bedroom door, paw scratching once. Inside, dust and disorder, the bed unmade, papers stuffed into drawers. Reed crouched, lifted the bed frame. His fingers brushed wood. A cedar box, its lid carved with faint initials. E. M. Maya's mother. Amara snapped photos before opening it. Inside lay journals bound in twine, a folded American flag, and a stack of letters. Reed's hands trembled as he lifted one journal, the pages filled with neat handwriting. Words of a mother documenting bruises, fears, the man she no longer trusted to raise her child. Amara whispered, "This is it." Reed exhaled like a man surfacing after years underwater. But before they could leave, tires crunched on the gravel outside. A truck door slammed. Voices rose. Arrow stiffened, growl echoing down the hall. Reed's eyes met Amara's. "He's back." The cedar box felt heavy in Reed's hands, not just from wood and paper, but from the weight of truth it carried. Arrow pressed against his knee, ears forward, body taut with warning. Outside, the crunch of tires and the slam of a door broke the silence like gunfire. Amara quickly snapped the lid closed and tucked the journals back inside. "We can't be caught with this here," she whispered. Reed scanned the room. The window overlooked the gravel drive. Caleb's black truck sat crooked, engine still running, headlights burning through the drizzle. The man himself strode toward the porch, a storm on two legs. Beside him, Pastor Elise hurried under an umbrella, Bible clutched to her chest. Maya's whisper echoed in Reed's mind. "He tells good stories." Arrow growled low, the sound vibrating in Reed's ribs. Amara's voice was steady, but her fingers tightened around the box. "We go out the back." They moved quickly, Reed leading, Arrow clearing the hall, Amara gripping the cedar box like contraband. But when they reached the kitchen, the back door rattled. A silhouette blocked the rain-smeared glass. Another ally of Caleb's, or worse? Sheriff Torres's voice came through, muffled but sharp. "Open up!" Now Reed yanked the door open. Torres stood there, rain dripping from his hat. Relief loosened Reed's shoulders for half a second, until he saw the hesitation in the sheriff's eyes. Torres glanced at the box in Amara's arms, then over his shoulder toward the front yard. "He called me first," Torres admitted. "Said you were stealing from him." "Said you're planting evidence." Amara's jaw clenched. "You know that's a lie." "I do?" Torres said, low. "But half this town believes what comes out of his mouth before the truth. If I walk out there empty-handed, I'll look complicit. If I walk out with you, they'll call it corruption." Reed stepped closer, voice iron. "So whose side are you on?" Torres held his gaze. For a long beat, the rain filled the silence. Finally, the sheriff exhaled. "The girls." "Always the girls. Go, I'll buy you time." Arrow barked once, sharp, as if testing the man's sincerity. Torres gave a single nod, then turned to stride around the house toward Caleb's booming voice at the front. Reed and Amara slipped into the rain, mud sucking at their boots. They cut across the yard toward Amara's car. Arrow trotted at Maya's side, never breaking contact. The chase. They reached the car. Amara shoved the box onto the back seat. Reed scanned the road, clear. He helped Maya inside, Arrow leaping up to curl beside her. But the moment the engine roared to life, headlights flared in the mirror. The black truck.
Caleb was behind the wheel now, Pastor Elise still beside him, her face pale but determined. The truck lurched forward, tires spitting gravel. Amara gripped the wheel. "Hold on!" They tore down the country road, rain streaking the windshield, wipers barely keeping up. Reed twisted in his seat, watching the truck gain. Caleb's face glowed white in the reflection of headlights, rage like a brand carved into his features. Maya clung to Arrow, whispering into his fur. "Don't let him take me." Reed reached back, pressing his hand over hers. "He won't." The truck swerved, trying to push them off the road. Amara fought the wheel, tires skidding in the mud. Reed's mind fractured for a moment. Desert roads, Humvees flipping, the scream of comrades. He nearly froze. But Arrow barked, loud and commanding, pulling him back into the now. "Brace!" Reed shouted. Amara jerked the wheel. The sedan skidded onto a narrow bridge, spanning the swollen creek. Caleb's truck thundered behind, bumper nearly kissing the rear. And then, blinding luck. Another set of lights crested the hill. Patrol cars, sirens cutting through the rain. Torres had called for backup after all. The truck slowed, then peeled off down a side road, mud spraying like a curtain. Amara pulled over, hands shaking on the wheel. Reed exhaled, every muscle aching from the grip of adrenaline. In the back, Maya sobbed silently into Arrow's fur, the dog licking her damp cheeks. The journal's voice. Back at the safe house, once the deputies confirmed the roads were clear, Amara finally opened the cedar box again. She laid the journals on the table, careful as if handling relics. Maya sat beside Arrow, eyes red but intent. "Mama's handwriting," she whispered. Amara flipped through pages. Each entry was dated, neat, filled with the observations of a medic who had patched wounds on strangers but couldn't ignore the bruises on her child. She wrote of Caleb's temper, his lies about finances, his
threats when she questioned survivors' benefits paperwork, and near the end, an entry shook them all. "If anything happens to me, if my voice is silenced, my daughter must be protected. Reed Walker knows honor, he was with my unit once. He will understand what truth costs." Reed froze, the words blurring. "She knew me?" Amara's eyes widened. "You served with her?" Memory clawed its way back. Dust, chaos, a woman with quick hands and a steady gaze, stitching wounds by flashlight. He hadn't remembered her name in the haze of too many faces, but now, Elena Morgan, Maya's mother. Reed pressed his palms into the table. "She saved my life once," his voice cracked, "and now it's my turn." Maya reached for his hand, her tiny fingers trembling. "Then you were meant to find me." Arrow lifted his head, eyes shining as though he, too, understood the strange symmetry of fate. Betrayal. The moment of hope shattered when Amara's phone buzzed. She read the message aloud, her voice tight. The church board just released a statement. Pastor Elise claims Maya has been manipulated by outsiders. They're rallying the community to demand she be returned to Caleb Reed, cursed under his breath. They'll weaponize faith to hide abuse. Amara closed the journal gently. "We have evidence now. We can fight this in court." But Reed's gut twisted. He knew men like Caleb, men who smiled in public and snapped their teeth in private. Men who didn't stop until someone forced them to. And he knew the fight was about to turn deadly. Because outside, parked just beyond the tree line, a black truck idled once more, waiting for night to fall. Night fell like a trap. The rain had stopped, but mist clung low over the fields, thick and heavy, muffling every sound. At the safe house, the fireplace glowed with weak orange light. Maya sat curled against Arrow, her small fingers tangled in his fur, the cedar box resting on the table like an anchor. Reed paced the floor, unable to settle, every creak of the house stirring ghosts in his chest. Amara was on the phone, whispering urgently to the district attorney about fast-tracking charges. Mrs. Calloway busied herself with tea, though her hands shook too much to steady the cups. Everyone felt it. The air pressed close, the calm before something violent.
Then the silence broke. Tires screeched on gravel outside, doors slammed, voices rose. Reed's body reacted before thought. He snapped the lights off, shoved the table against the door, and signaled for everyone to move back. Arrow was already growling, head low, hackles raised. Through the thin curtains, headlights flared. Shadows moved. 3 men, not just Caleb this time. He had brought help. The first blow rattled the front door. Maya screamed, clutching her photograph. Reed knelt, gripping her shoulders. "Look at me. No matter what happens, you hold on to Arrow. He'll never leave you. Do you understand?" Tears streaked her face, but she nodded. Arrow licked her cheek once, then planted himself between her and the door. The second blow splintered wood. Shouts came, Caleb's voice oily and furious. "Give her back, she's mine!" Reed's chest clenched, breath quickening. For a flash, he was no longer in a farmhouse in America. He was back in Fallujah, a door breaking down, enemies flooding in, the smell of smoke and burning diesel choking him. His vision blurred. Gunfire echoed in memory. His hand trembled around his weapon. Arrow barked, sharp and insistent. The sound cut through the fog, tethering Reed back to now. He inhaled once, steadying, and raised his gun. The third blow burst the door open. Caleb stormed inside, 2 men behind him. Pastor Elise lingered at the porch, muttering prayers that sounded more like curses. Reed fired into the ceiling, the blast shattering wood, a warning. "1 step closer and I drop the next round in your leg." The intruders hesitated, but Caleb sneered. "You're broken, soldier." Everyone knows it. They won't believe a word from a man who shakes at thunder. He lunged forward. Arrow launched, teeth sinking into Caleb's arm. The man roared, swinging wildly, slamming the dog against the wall. Arrow yelped but didn't release, his jaws locked with desperate loyalty. Maya screamed. Reed surged forward, slamming into Caleb, the 2 of them crashing into the table. The cedar box toppled, journals spilling across the floor. Amara dove to grab them, shielding the papers with her body. One of Caleb's men swung a bat. Reed caught the blow on his shoulder, pain flashing white, but he twisted and drove his elbow into the man's gut. The bat clattered to the ground. Mrs. Calloway hurled a teapot at the second intruder's head, stunning him just long enough for Amara to kick his legs out. But Caleb was a storm. He ripped free from Arrow's grip, blood dripping from his sleeve, and seized Maya by the wrist. "She's mine!" he spat. Maya cried out, struggling, the photograph fluttering from her hand. Reed saw it. The same scene replaying, a child dragged into darkness, his failure sealing her fate. His heart pounded like mortars, but then Maya's eyes met his. She whispered, broken but fierce, "Please don't let him take me." The fog of war shattered. Reed surged, tackling Caleb, the 2 men grappling across the floor. Caleb clawed for the fallen photograph, but Arrow lunged again despite his bleeding side, driving Caleb back. Reed pinned him, fists raining down with years of rage. "Enough!" Amara shouted, yanking Reed back before he crossed a line that couldn't be uncrossed. Deputies stormed in through the back door, weapons drawn. Sheriff Torres barked orders. Caleb and his men were dragged out in cuffs, Pastor Elise screaming scripture until her voice broke. The farmhouse quieted, the chaos leaving only wreckage. A broken door, journals scattered, Arrow limping but still, guarding Maya, and Reed trembling in the aftermath of nearly losing himself. Maya crawled to Arrow, wrapping her arms around his neck. The dog licked her face, tail thumping weakly despite the wound. "You saved me," she whispered. Reed knelt beside them, voice raw. "No." He did. "And you," his hand shook as he picked up the photograph from the floor and placed it back in her palm. Sirens faded, rain returned in soft sheets against the broken windows. And for the first time, Maya let go of her terror long enough to fall asleep against Arrow's side. Reed watched her breathing steady, the journals stacked on the table behind them like a fortress of truth. His own breathing was ragged, but when Arrow's eyes met his, the soldier knew tomorrow the battle would continue in court. But tonight they had survived. The courthouse looked different the next morning. Sunlight streamed through the high windows, turning the wet marble floor into mirrors. The storm had passed, but the echoes of it lingered in the bruises on Reed's arms, the bandages around Arrow's ribs, and the small shadows under Maya's eyes. Inside the courtroom, the air hummed with tension. Word of the night's assault had spread. Some townsfolk whispered in defense of Caleb, unwilling to let go of their illusions. But more had shifted. Neighbors who once stayed silent now glanced nervously at the floor, shame-carving lines in their faces. Judge Holloway entered, his expression carved from stone. "I have reviewed the emergency reports, the journals, and the testimony. Today, this hearing will not decide custody alone. It will decide protection, accountability, and truth." Caleb sat shackled between deputies, his bandaged arm hidden beneath a pressed suit jacket. His eyes smoldered with fury, but his voice was smooth when allowed to speak. "I've only ever wanted what's best for my girl. She's confused, manipulated. These strangers have filled her head with lies." Amara rose, holding one of Elena Morgan's journals. "This is the voice of Maya's mother. She documented bruises, threats, financial fraud, and her deepest fear that if she died, Caleb would twist her child's life to suit himself. Her words are clear: protect Maya, and protect the benefits meant for her." Gasps rippled through the benches. The judge leaned forward, reading aloud a passage Amara had marked. "If my daughter ever has to choose between silence and safety, I pray someone braver than me will listen. Let truth be louder than fear." Maya sat small in her chair, Arrow curled protectively at her feet. When asked to speak, she rose with the photograph clutched in both hands. Her voice trembled, but it carried. "He says he loves me," she whispered, "but he only loves me when I'm quiet. When I don't eat too much, when I don't cry." She pressed the photo to her chest. "My mum said heroes keep going even when it's hard. I want to be safe. Please, don't send me back." Her words rang louder than any sermon. Even Pastor Elise, seated stiffly in the gallery, looked away, unable to meet the child's eyes. Reed's turn came last. He stood slowly, Arrow rising beside him. His voice was gravel but steady. "I've seen children torn apart by war, by cruelty, by the silence of those who should protect them. I will not stand by while it happens again here. Maya's mother saved lives, she saved mine, and now it's my duty to keep her daughter safe." For a long moment the judge said nothing. He studied Maya, Arrow, Reed, Amara, and the journals stacked before him. Then he spoke. "This court finds Caleb Morgan unfit as a guardian. Custody of Maya Elena Morgan will be granted to the state under emergency care, with placement to be determined immediately. Furthermore, given the extraordinary circumstances, I am authorizing expedited adoption proceedings should a qualified guardian petition." His gaze shifted to Reed. "If you are willing." Reed froze, every scar in his soul suddenly feeling less like a wound and more like a path that had led here. He looked at Maya. She looked back, hope trembling in her eyes. Arrow nudged his leg as if pushing him forward. "Yes, Your Honor," Reed said. His voice broke, but it was enough. "I am willing." The new beginning. Weeks later, the farmhouse fireplace glowed brighter. Snow melted outside, leaving the fields soft and green. Amara visited often, bringing stacks of legal forms and updates, each one pushing the adoption closer to final. Mrs. Calloway stopped by with baked bread. Sheriff Torres came once, hat in hand, to apologize for every moment he hadn't acted sooner. But the house's heart was in the small things. Maya learning to ride Arrow like a furry horse through the living room. Reed reading from her mother's journal at night, his voice catching on passages where Eleanor's humor peeked through her exhaustion. Arrow sleeping at Maya's feet, his bandaged side healed, but his devotion unchanged. One evening, Reed found Maya sitting by the window, the photograph in her lap. She turned when he entered. "She said heroes keep going," Maya whispered. "Does that mean I'm a hero too?" Reed knelt beside her. "You are the bravest person I know." Maya leaned against him, her small hand curling into his. "Then I don't feel lost anymore." Arrow padded over, resting his head on both their laps. The three of them sat in the golden light, the storm behind them, the journals safe on the mantel, and the future stretching forward, not erased, but rebuilt. Outside, the first stars pierced the night. Maya looked up, whispering almost to herself, "This is home now." Reed closed his eyes, the words carving something new inside him, something whole. And in the quiet, even the scars felt like miracles.